he assured me, don't worry, this series is not going to work. You'll be lucky to make it through the first season.
You were working on a Star Trek show.
I was so boring and tiresome. I had this thing about discipline.
For 7 years, Patrick Stewart commanded the bridge of the USS Enterprise with unshakable authority. Captain Jean-Luc Picard never wavered, never doubted, never lost control.
Channel to the Sutherland.
Data here, sir.
We're reading a disruption of the tachyon net in your area.
But behind the cameras, the Shakespearean actor who played him was drowning. Working 12 to 15-hour days, 5 days a week, with no social life and Saturdays spent doing laundry in his apartment.
I would begin to open him up and let him out. And that continued for 7 years.
Screaming at his castmates for laughing during takes because he thought they weren't taking their work seriously enough. Making an unintentionally racist comment that haunted him for decades. Storming off set after lecturing everyone that we are not here to have fun. At 70, with decades of distance and a new memoir called Making It So, Patrick Stewart is finally revealing what really happened during those grueling Star Trek years. The isolation, the cultural clashes, the punishing schedule that consumed everything, and the moment he realized he'd been completely wrong about how to lead. This is the story nobody saw coming from television's most dignified captain. 1. The Shakespearean actor who didn't belong. When Patrick Stewart landed the role of Captain Jean-Luc Picard in 1987, he was a 47-year-old stage actor from Yorkshire, England, with decades of Royal Shakespeare Company and National Theatre experience under his belt. He'd done some film work, but television? Series television with a demanding weekly schedule? Never.
For their innocent associations. With the first link, the chain is forged.
Industry insiders predicted the show would fail. A syndicated Star Trek sequel without William Shatner felt doomed. Stewart was being paid more money than he'd ever imagined earning in his life, and he was terrified.
Oh, Star Trek, Next Generation. Okay, let's see what's going on. I'll just watch it for a couple of minutes.
This was his first regular TV series, and everyone was watching, waiting for him to fail. So he approached it the only way he knew how, with the intense, serious, disciplined professionalism of classical British theatre. No goofing around, no jokes between takes, just pure, focused work. He thought that's what leadership looked like. He thought that's what respect meant. He had no idea how badly he was misreading the room, or how much resentment was quietly building among his American castmates who worked completely differently. 2. We are not here to have fun. The clash came early, right in the first season.
I wouldn't want to live my life knowing that my future was written. My boundaries had been already set.
Jonathan Frakes, Denise Crosby, and Brent Spiner would tease each other between takes, ad-lib jokes, and laugh when they flubbed lines.
Silliest actor on the set. And it was all thanks to my pals in Star Trek who said, Patrick, for heaven's sake, come on.
Normal behavior for American television actors trying to keep spirits up during long shooting days. To Stewart, it felt like chaos, disrespect, unprofessionalism. His experiences at the RSC and National Theatre had been intense and serious. You didn't joke around Shakespeare. One day, he'd had enough. He called a meeting and lectured the entire cast about their conduct, telling them they needed to stop goofing off and take the work more seriously. Denise Crosby spoke up. "We've got to have some fun sometimes, Patrick." Stewart's response became legendary among the cast. "We are not here, Denise, to have fun." The room went silent. Not the good kind of silent. He wrote in his memoir decades later, "I could be a severe bastard." That night, he stormed off set, furious with everyone. He thought he was setting standards. He was actually alienating the people he'd be working with for the next 7 years. 3. The intervention that changed everything. Hours after Stewart stormed off, Jonathan Frakes and Brent Spiner showed up at his trailer. Not to fight, to talk. They acknowledged that yes, maybe there was too much goofing around sometimes, but they also made something crystal clear.
Belay that order, Mr. Data.
I beg your pardon.
I will take this to Starfleet myself.
Stewart's approach of lecturing and scolding the cast wasn't leadership. It was off-putting and counterproductive. He'd failed to read the room, imposing Royal Shakespeare Company behavior on people accustomed to the ways of episodic television, which was, after all, what they were actually shooting. Stewart listened. really listened, and something shifted.
Including episodes I'd never seen before, which was fun and exciting.
He realized these weren't lazy actors who didn't care. They were professionals who used humor and camaraderie to survive the grinding schedule of weekly television. They weren't disrespecting the work by laughing. They were protecting themselves from burnout. That conversation in his trailer changed the entire trajectory of the show. Stewart started loosening up, started joining in the jokes, started understanding that you could take the work seriously without taking yourself so damn seriously. The cast slowly forgave him, and Captain Picard became more human in the process. 4. The racist comment that haunted him for years. But Stewart made another mistake during those early years, one that haunted him far longer. He made a comment on set, something he thought was innocent, that Michael Dorn and LeVar Burton, the show's 2 black actors, immediately recognized as racist.
Establishing shots, reaction shots, 2 shots, zooms.
Stewart talks about it briefly in Season 7 DVD extras, refusing to reveal what he actually said, only admitting that Dorn and Burton confronted him about it, explaining the racial context he'd been completely unaware of as a British actor unfamiliar with American racial sensitivities.
I don't look for it, but occasionally, you're going, oh.
He apologized immediately, but for years afterward, he worried he'd permanently damaged those relationships. He also had loud, vocal arguments with Dorn throughout the series about other things, their personalities frequently clashing. Yet somehow they all kept working together. All kept showing up. The relationship survived, even strengthened over time. Dorn and Burton eventually forgave him. But Stewart never forgot. Decades later, he wrote that the incident taught him that good intentions don't erase impact, and ignorance doesn't excuse harm. Some lessons only come through shame. 5. The brutal schedule that consumed everything beyond the interpersonal drama. There was the simple, crushing reality of the workload.
They'll destroy you.
Shields up. Aye, sir.
Stewart worked 5-day weeks that stretched to 12, 13, 14, sometimes 15-hour days, especially toward the end of each week.
A potential downside to having had so much success in a successful series in a certain role.
He was in nearly every scene of every episode, carrying the entire show on his shoulders. For the first couple years, he had no social life whatsoever. None. His entire existence revolved around work and sleep. On Saturdays, he'd allow himself to sleep in slightly, then spend the day doing his own laundry, which he still does to this day. That was his ray of sunshine during the week. Laundry. Sundays meant preparing for the next grueling 5 days. He was too naive and new to series television to understand he could have negotiated for an executive producer role that might have given him more control and slightly better hours. He just worked, and worked, and worked. While William Daniels knocked out Knight Rider episodes in 45 minutes from a recording booth, Stewart was living on the Enterprise set, exhausted, isolated, barely remembering what life outside the show felt like. 6. The late-night ready room sessions. Some of his closest bonds formed during the most exhausting moments. Those ready room scenes with Picard, Riker, and Data, the ones that happened late into the night, mostly on Fridays after the rest of the cast had gone home. Just Stewart, Jonathan Frakes, and Brent Spiner, grinding through dialogue while the crew packed up around them. That's where the real friendships formed. Not in the big ensemble scenes on the bridge, but in those quiet, exhausted hours when it was just 3 actors trying to make philosophical Trek dialogue sound natural at 2 a.m.
Know the reason we've stopped. Display sensor schematic.
Stewart also grew close to his fellow Brits, Gates McFadden, with whom he had an easy working relationship, Marina Sirtis, another Brit who felt just as out of place on an American show as Stewart sometimes did. They understood the cultural adjustment in ways the American cast couldn't fully grasp, and he treated Will Wheaton not as a child actor, but as an adult actor on equal standing who just needed a bit more experience. These relationships, forged through shared exhaustion and mutual respect, became the foundation that held the show together through 7 seasons. 7. The directing experiments he hated. Stewart directed 5 episodes of The Next Generation across its 7 seasons, and he hated watching himself in every single one.
But he is hiding something. It's hard to tell, but he is holding something back.
In theory, hero worship, a fistful of datas, phantasms, and preemptive strike, his final turn behind the camera. He said he actually tried to get them to cut his scenes down in the episodes he directed because he felt stiff and awkward, unable to focus on both directing and acting simultaneously. When offered the chance to direct the Trek films like Leonard Nimoy, William Shatner, and Jonathan Frakes had done, Stewart killed the idea flat. He didn't want the scope and scale of a film. He preferred the intimacy of episodes, but even then, he knew his strength was acting, not directing. Preemptive Strike, the second-to-last episode before the series finale, came right before he had to direct himself through the emotional final days of filming All Good Things. He was exhausted before they even wrapped the first shot. Racing through a Western-themed episode in the dark, trying to save time, pushing everyone to the limit because if they didn't shoot it, it wasn't getting shot. 8. The episode they all regret? Then there's Code of Honor, the Season 1 episode that everyone involved wishes had never been made.
Suppose one of your cave-dwelling ancestors were to see you as you are today.
The 4th episode of the series follows the Enterprise trying to retrieve a vaccine from a planet populated entirely by black aliens, depicted with hideous racial stereotypes. Stewart rewatched the entire series while writing his memoir and called it cringe. Michael Dorn said he wished they'd never made it and felt lucky his character wasn't in it. Jonathan Frakes reportedly called it a racist piece of shit and tried to get it removed from reruns. Brent Spiner said it was racist and the worst of the series. LeVar Burton said it stinks without question. The episode's director was allegedly fired after it aired. Critics have called it possibly the worst piece of Star Trek ever made, pure trash and absurdly racist. It stands as a stark outlier in a franchise that once broke racial barriers with the first interracial kiss on television. Stewart says looking back on it now, he's embarrassed they all participated, even though at the time, nobody seemed to fully grasp how offensive it was. Some mistakes you can't undo. You can only acknowledge them and do better. 9. The finale that nearly broke him. The series finale, All Good Things, came after Stewart had just directed Preemptive Strike and had less than 2 weeks between wrapping that and starting the first Trek film, Generations. He was in nearly every scene of the finale, jumping between 3 different time periods, carrying the weight of saving all life on Earth before it even existed. They filmed the last scene on the infamous planet Hell set at 1:30, 2 in the morning. Everyone was absolutely beaten. The crew was exhausted. Director Winrich Colby practically dragged John Delancey and Stewart to the finish. That was how they wrapped 7 seasons. 2 actors, alone in a cave at 2 a.m., too tired to feel the enormity of what was ending. Stewart admitted it was bittersweet. They all realized they wouldn't be working together on a series anymore, though they had the movies ahead. But it was still emotional, ending something that had consumed 7 years of their lives. 10. Legacy at 70. At 70, Patrick Stewart looks back on the next generation with hard-won wisdom. In his memoir and recent interviews, he admits what took him decades to accept. Jean-Luc Picard is Patrick Stewart, and he is Picard. For years, he resisted that, trying to keep them separate, trying to maintain the classical actor's distance from his character. But he finally learned to trust himself, to let his instincts and emotions bleed into Picard in ways that made the character richer. When he returned for Star Trek, Picard reuniting with Gates, Marina, Jonathan, Brent, LeVar, and Michael. The difference was night and day. They fooled around constantly on set, and Stewart led the charge. He laughed at his younger self, saying, "We are not here to have fun." If you love discovering what really happened behind the scenes of Star Trek, The Next Generation, smash that like button and hit subscribe for more untold Hollywood stories. Drop a comment with your favorite Picard moment or the TNG episode that meant the most to you growing up. We read every single one. Want to know what other iconic captains went through to bring their characters to life? Click the video on screen next where we're revealing another legend's hidden struggles. Make it so. See you there.